That's him, Remy. That's him, yeah.
Exactly. Through the French Development Agency, which is part of Digital Africa as well, obviously, and different French structures. And we want now to gather a lot of other players, a lot of African and European tycoons, business angels, and business players to build this platform, to develop, leverage, and accelerate private sector in Africa. That's it. I don't want to be longer. I will answer all your questions, but that's the three messages I wanted to convey for you today. I believe in this new narrative, in innovation, and in the private sector. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But I want to.
So, ladies and gentlemen, where do we start from? So we have a president is facing this way. So, yeah, let's get the first shot. We can't hear you. You tell us your name, your organization, or your business, and your country. Then you ask your question. You can have it.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Elumelu. My name is Princess Adeyinka Tekena. I'm the founder of Happy Coffee. This was a business I started after I received my first grant in 2015 from the Tony Elumelu Foundation. It will interest you, from my studies, I found out that there is a new trend of populism growing in continental Europe. And we also found out that there are a lot of trade wars going on amongst competing nations, right? I want to find out from you, is global trade dead as we know it? That's number one. Number two, I want to find out if entrepreneurs like myself in Africa just need to look inwards into African markets. Because you and I know that Europe is close to African businesses and African markets. Will those markets ever open up to us? Thank you.
I mean, your first question is a very complicated one, but it's true that today you have a rise of extremisms, but not just on the economic side. What you call populists is in fact a lot of extremes. And you have indeed what we definitely should call a beginning of a trade war between some developed countries, largely triggered by the US decision. If you look at the roots of these different features and phenomena, I think I could tell you that it's due to anxiety of middle classes in Europe. Let me explain. I think we made a mistake, a collective mistake during the past decades. We developed a globalization made for everybody, because when you look at the figures, we decrease poverty and inequalities, by the way, at the scale of the planet. At a global scale, this globalization was positive. But you had a big acceleration of this globalization in terms of free trading movements, and you have much more financialized and digitalized globalization. And the consequence of this new phenomenon in acceleration, concentration of wealth on the 1%, the top 1% of people. And in Europe, everywhere, those who had the feeling, in Europe and in the US, by the way, so in all the Western world, those who had the feeling they were the potential victim of this globalization were middle classes. Middle classes became feared by migration issues, by terrorism, and new risks. They are the first one to be feared like that. And that's because of that you have such a rise of extremes everywhere in Europe. And this push coming from some governments and some people to say, now we will build walls and we will close everything. Obviously, it's not sustainable, but they use it, they manipulate this anxiety. which means that we have to fix the situation. And I can revert on it during the discussion if I have other questions on migration. I have a strategy for that. But this strategy is not just to build a wall. But we have to listen to this anxiety coming from middle classes, which means that if we want on the long run to fix it, we need to provide this new narrative. We need more Africans to succeed in Africa and more Europeans. And we need more Europeans to have a positive view about Africa. The lose-lose game. The lose-lose game is to have extremists in Europe playing on fears and sometimes on racism and saying African people are losers, they want to invade us. And is to have African people saying it's impossible to succeed in my country. I have to reach Europe, even taking the most crazy risks. And, by the way, making smugglers richer and richer. That's a lose-lose game. I do believe in a win-win game, which is to say, let's help Africa to succeed. Let's provide new hope for African youth in Africa. And let's explain European people that it's part of the same story and the common destiny, and increase common circulation and cross common experiences. Trade is part of it, and trade war has the same trigger. Middle classes in America thought they were the first victims of globalization because it destroyed jobs in industry. And I think trade war is a bad answer. Is how to close the countries and how to build new tariffs, new barriers. You will increase costs, kill jobs, and it doesn't fix the issue for middle classes. So I do believe that we can build something much more, I would say, inclusive for middle classes in Europe and in the Western world. You can explain your people, we can refound this globalization to have people succeeding and taking their part of the success, which is the best possible answer. To address your third point and the end of your question, I do believe that we will manage basically to fix at a point of time this trade war. I think that's a necessity and the interest of everybody. And that's why I do believe that the right perspective for African entrepreneurs, for European entrepreneurs, is to pursue precisely this cross-market experience, this access to other markets, and this trade developments. The new generation of trade developments should be more respectful about social issues, environmental issues, and obviously, new trade opportunities will not be allowed if it's just to take opportunities in a country without taking care of the people. But that's why I do believe that entrepreneurs like you, in your sector, obviously have African perspectives, but European perspectives as well. Because, first, if your business, I'm sorry, I didn't test your product, but if the product is good, it will succeed. But we will open access for people like you. Come. We will open access for people like you. And if you provide a positive image, a positive brand, and it seems to be come.